Hold on 1 second, ma'am. I'm gonna get officers there. What kind of car are you in? I'm in the car. Please hurry. Listen, stop yelling because I can't have you with you yelling. I don't know. I'm stuck now. I'm stuck now. Jimmy, what car are you dispatching?
Citation.
Hello?
Stand by, I'm Wayland. Plantation? Hello, Plantation?
Shots fired.
Cara Day was shot dead in the parking lot of the police station.
About 10 minutes after a Latin dance aerobic class starts in the LA Fitness Center, George Sodini enters in workout clothes carrying a duffel bag. Moments later, shots ring out. Suddenly, he turns off the lights and the darkness flashes with gunfire, a ploy to either confuse about 30 women trapped inside or maybe to avoid seeing the horror he was creating.
One-room Amish schoolhouse in Lancaster, Pennsylvania was the site of just a horrifying scene. A 32-year-old truck driver went to the school and basically took hostages, allowed the 15 boys between the ages of 13 and 16 to leave. There were something like 12 girls between the ages of 6 and 13, is that right, who had to stay in the school. He allowed some of the adult women who were either pregnant or with small children to leave, and the teacher got out and dialed 911, but basically he lined up all the little girls in front of the blackboard and tied their feet and then called police and said that state troopers had to leave within 10 seconds, and suddenly shots rang out, and when it was all over, he had shot 10 girls, most of them in the head, execution style.
Americans see acts of violence against women so many times a day that it is woven into the fabric of our culture. From the large screen, to the small screen, to the screen you hold in your hand. We all know that the motto of the news media is, if it bleeds, it leads. Talk show hosts don't take intelligence tests. Media giants won't cut profits by eliminating products that glorify violence against women. Bitches and hoes are not synonyms for women. And so, women continue to take it on the chin. As we're watching this somewhere in the United States, acts of violence are happening to women. 5 million acts of domestic violence in the United States each year.
50 to 80% of teens report knowing someone involved in a violent relationship.
According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence in their lifetime.
A woman has a right to be safe. She has a right not to be raped, beaten, or killed.
I've said it so many times before, love doesn't hurt. And if a man hits you once, he will hit you again. He will, because that's what he knows how to do.
1 woman out of 6 will be raped in the United States. This constant barrage of imagery is like secondhand smoke. You don't have to do anything to get poisoned by it. You can't make people go outside to hit. You can't have a battering section in a restaurant. Kids who witness domestic violence are 65% more likely to become victims or perpetrators of domestic violence.
Slightly more than half of female victims of intimate violence live in households with children under age 12.
Recent studies show children and teenagers' exposure to violence in the home was a significant factor in predicting a child's violent behavior.
It's not just the immediate effect of the violence. It is the ongoing memories, particularly when it comes to children, that then gets passed on generation to generation.
Finally treat domestic violence like the heinous crime that it is.
I know you see my number in your caller ID. I told you not to go out. You do not want to get me mad. Don't make me get ugly, all right? It's been all day since I've talked to you. What's wrong with you? Are you seriously stupid or something? I can't believe the way she's treating me, man. The way she treats you.
Learn the warning signs of a batterer in the making. Domestic violence is not cool. Neither are budget cuts that have decimated funding for battered women's shelters.
If we do not get the 2 grants that are pending for our shelter, is that we will most likely have to close that shelter.
For Julie Sena, the Center for Violence-Free Relationships and Shelter in El Dorado County were her way out.
They allowed me to be here, to be talking to you. So it's important. It's important that people know that.
Sena escaped an abusive marriage and spent 2 months with her young son in the shelter.
Police protection. And rape evidence kits. Untested rape evidence kits are on shelves throughout the country. Police departments need to process these kits. Every one of these untested rape evidence kits represents a rapist out on the streets. If he raped once, he will rape again. As we reach a frighteningly high unemployment rate, people will not get nicer.
Howard County police have arrested an 83-year-old Columbia man after they say he attacked his wife with a hammer.
It is more likely that someone will strike out at those closest to them.
Shocking and gruesome story of a TV station owner's wife found decapitated at the Bridges Muslim TV network out in Orchard Park.
The economy is one contributing factor to the rise of anger.
This is Michael Moore. I am here to make a citizen's arrest of the board of directors of AIG.
And the election of our first African-American president has enraged and frightened many people.
There is a man in the crowd who has a gun, a handgun strapped on his lower leg. And I asked the chief of police about this. The chief of police says that it is legal for him to have the gun as long as it is not concealed.
The temperature has risen against the LGBT community, people of color, immigrants, pro-choice activists, and women. In 1 week, a guard was murdered at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and Dr. George Tiller was shot to death in his church.
The issue of abortion, of course, might not be settled by the Supreme Court at all. It could instead be settled by the gun.
Murdering a doctor who provides life-saving services to women is just another form of violence against women. Bob Herbert wrote in the New York Times, "We profess to be shocked at an environment in which the rape, murder, and humiliation of females is not only a staple of the news, but an important cornerstone of the nation's entertainment." Yes, Mr. Herbert, we agree. Here's how we can illustrate the situation. Put a frog in water, and the frog will not respond. Slowly boil the water, and the frog will die unaware. But if the frog is dropped into already boiling water, we are like the frog put in the pot when the water is cold. As the violence heats up, we are oblivious. We don't notice how serious things are until it is boiling all around us. But then it's too late. Women feel the punch in their gut when they see other women being battered. Who else feels it in their gut? Joe Biden.
I met Joe Biden a long, long time ago because he was working on these issues. He wrote the Violence Against Women Act years before it passed. And every year he tried to get hearings and he tried to get it passed. And everybody said they were for it. But the truth is, they weren't. When it was time to count the votes and actually get this out of committee, the votes weren't there until President Clinton got elected in '92.
My ex was sentenced through that act, and he was punished through that act, and he got 25 years. And for 25 years, I'm carefree. for 25 years. I can see my son grow up into a man. I can ensure his safety, and I can ensure my safety.
In 1994, Senator Joe Biden supported and successfully championed the Violence Against Women Act.
Good afternoon. I'm Valerie Jarrett, Senior Advisor to President Barack Obama. I'm just so delighted to be here with Vice President Biden, with Lynn Rosenthal, and with all of you. A few months ago, President Obama named me as chair of the White House Council on Women and Girls. And our executive director, Tina Chin, who's sitting in the front row, Tina, wave. Our mission is simple. It's to look at the issues that face women and girls in our country and, in fact, internationally. I'm so proud to have the pleasure and honor of introducing the Vice President of the United States. Please join me in welcoming Vice President Joe Biden.
Thank you. There are sins of commission and sins of omission. One of the sins of omission is this has not been a front and center issue for the last 8 years on the national agenda. It used to be. It used to be. When you guys passed the Violence Against Women Act, it was. It's exciting to be surrounded by so many strong advocates. Ellie, it's great to see you. You know, we sat at a table like this a couple of years ago when you finally said, hey, what are we doing? Why don't we pass this thing? I love this woman. You ought to thank her. That's the reason why this thing happened.
It's 2009, and Joe Biden is now vice president. We finally have a compassionate executive and legislative branch. Biden and Obama have created the Office of White House Advisor on Violence Against Women and appointed Lynn Rosenthal to keep women's issues in the foreground of the administration. But America is a house divided. Right now, a fight over health care rages on, with diversionary issues raised like who's going to kill Granny?
We should not have a government program that determines you're going to pull the plug on Grandma.
As the shouting continues, it drowns out a fact that most people are not aware of. Many medical insurers have defined domestic violence as a pre-existing condition.
Health insurance reform and what it means for our families is very much a women's issue. Women in this country have been denied coverage because of pre-existing conditions like having a C-section or having had a baby. In some states, it is still legal to deny a woman coverage because she's been the victim of domestic violence.
Isn't it smarter to prevent domestic violence than to argue about who should be paying for it?
The state budget crisis hitting local domestic violence services hard. Women's shelters around the Central Coast facing hundreds of thousands of dollars in cuts as a result of Governor Schwarzenegger's decision to eliminate funding for shelters statewide.
Cutting back on safety nets for victims of domestic violence at this moment is like refusing to upgrade levees in New Orleans just before Hurricane Katrina. We need to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act and increase funding for low-cost housing and shelters for women whose lives are at stake. As more women become powerful in public life, positive change is possible. 911 can locate the address of callers and send first responders.
The location is 321 Stonebridge.
Since this is our only emergency response number, we need law enforcement to make domestic violence a top priority for 911 operators. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is only intended to provide information and referrals to local shelters and programs.
Domestic Violence Hotline. Currently, advocates are responding to other calls.
That's not good enough. We need more resources for the National Domestic Violence Hotline, with a number easy as 123. We need to make sure somebody is always there to help. We need programs to teach kids, in grade school, middle school, high school, and college, what violence really is, and how to stop it. We need a corps of pro bono lawyers nationwide to advise women in jeopardy.
My name's Debbie Gottschalk. We're in Wilmington, Delaware, and I'm an attorney at Community Legal Aid Society. We're a nonprofit legal services program. We provide civil legal representation to people who are poor, elderly, or disabled.
I have a tremendous respect for every single one of those attorneys.
We need our Senate to ratify CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. This United Nations treaty has not been signed by the United States. Our ratification would assure that its provisions are more rigorously enforced. By signing on to CEDAW and the International Violence Against Women Act, the United States will gain legitimacy in the global arena. Violence against women knows no borders. It's a worldwide disease.
The atrocities that these women have suffered, which stand for the atrocities that so many have suffered, that those who attack civilian populations using systematic rape are guilty of crimes against humanity.
Rape is a tool of war in Congo and Sudan. Girls are being bought and sold as sex slaves and a source of cheap labor from Asia to Eastern Europe. Young women in Afghanistan are viciously attacked for seeking an education.
We believe there should be no impunity for the sexual and gender-based violence committed by so many, and that there must be arrests and prosecutions and punishment.
Here at home, we need to support those who support women.
Hi, feminist activists. We're the interns at the Feminist Majority Foundation in Washington, D.C.
I aspire to be the mayor of Washington, D.C. Now I think I want to run for governor.
We bring young women to politics so that the next generation of women can be equal partners in leading this nation.
We stand today at the threshold of a great event, both in the life of the United Nations and in the life of mankind. This Universal Declaration of Human Rights may well become the international Magna Carta of all men everywhere.
It shows you what one voice can do. One voice can change a room. And if a voice can change a room, it can change a city. And if it can change a city, it can change a state. And if it can change a state, it can change a nation. And if it can change a nation, it can change the world. Your voice can change the world tomorrow. Are you fired up? Are you ready to go? Fired up. Ready to go. Fired up. Ready to go. Fired up. Ready to go. Let's go change the world.